Hey there, eyes-free sports fans. Kickstart your health and wellness journey with a twist. Introducing Couch to Active, where health and fitness for the blind and visually impaired community finally gets the fun treatment it deserves. Couch to Active offers personalized one-on-one coaching, exciting group classes on Zoom, and expert guidance in weight management. It's not just about getting fit, it's about having a blast while doing it. I've personally tried their classes and have thoroughly enjoyed them. Don't miss out on the fun. Join the Couch to Active community today and start your journey to a healthier and happier you. Learn more at couch2active.com, couchtoactive.com, or call 206-672-2070, 206-672-2070. Couch to Active, where fitness and fun go hand in hand. Hello, and thanks for tuning into episode 104 of the Eyes Free Sports podcast. My name is Greg Lindberg. On this episode, our guest is a gentleman from the great state of New York who has had quite a career professionally, but is also very involved in sports for the blind and has been extremely instrumental in blind baseball coming to the U.S. You might be familiar with beep baseball, but blind baseball is definitely a different type of baseball adapted for the blind and visually impaired. So let's go ahead now and hit the field and get swinging into episode 104. Okay, so my guest here on this episode of the podcast is Ed Plumacher. And Ed is a very accomplished blind athlete, has worked, I know, in accessibility for a while, and also very involved in the U.S. Blind Baseball Association. Ed, welcome to Eyes Free Sports.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Really appreciate you taking the time to chat, and I know we've got plenty to get into, and super excited to finally chat about blind baseball. Which, for those who may not know, is different from beep baseball. I know sometimes beep baseball is called blind baseball, but there are actually two different sports. So really excited to get into that as well here with you today.
Great, thank you.
Excellent. So why don't we just kick things off, Ed, with just your background as far as where you were born and your formative years in life.
Sure. So, I'm from New Jersey. I was born in New Jersey originally and grew up there. I also did go to grammar school in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and then back to New Jersey again to, finish up grade school and then back into high school. So I do have a bit of a mix of living on the East Coast and getting a little bit of that Midwestern influence growing up and, and playing ball in both locations in a Little League, which was pretty interesting. I remember our ball fields in Albuquerque, we didn't have a blade of grass on them. So that was wow. Quite interesting. So, but yeah, growing up, I always had issues with vision. Everybody knew I couldn't see in the dark from an early age. And they knew something was wrong, but a lot of times they just associated with me being klutzy or so, because I was always battered, bruised, and bloody from running into things or tripping over things and stuff like that. So
right.
It wasn't until later on that they figured everything out.
Gotcha. I see. And so what exactly is your eye condition?
Yeah, so I have retinitis pigmentosa, and I also have nystagmus. So the nystagmus, I guess it did play a role in me growing up as much, but I didn't notice it because I had a larger field of view. It wasn't until the field of view really narrowed with the RP that I noticed the shakiness and the less vision I had peripherally with narrower field of view, the more the shaking. So. Now I just have light perception. So just with light perception, it's quite annoying. So it's one of those things where I try to wear darker shades, and I end up closing my eyes a lot during the day because I just find it a little overwhelming at times.
Right. I can definitely relate, kind of at that same stage, and the light has gotten more and more annoying over time. So as far as education, did you pretty much go to mainstream schools then growing up?
Yeah. I didn't. I wasn't diagnosed till 15. I was already in high school at that time. So
Hmm.
yeah. So I went to mainstream schools, and like I said, I lived in the East Coast and also in Albuquerque. So I went to five grammar schools and three different high schools. So it was
Oh, wow.
kind of a little unique that I always seem to find myself in a new environment almost every year and a half or so. So which I think really helped me as I was growing older, especially when I went to college. So, when I went to Villanova University, and when I first got to school, I recognized the fact that a lot of these kids that I was meeting, this was the first time that they were changed. They were out of the school system. They started since kindergarten. So I felt I had a unique advantage over being able to, mingle, mix, make new friends, and do things. And just from there, I just seemed to really just break out and establish myself at Villanova, and which I really enjoyed. I met my wife there the first week of school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we went on after that. We got married a couple of years after I graduated, and she graduated. She went on to grad school, so we waited for that. So. And we raised five kids, but together, so it's really good.
Nice. Great love story.
Yeah, you can call it that. I mean, believe me, we went through a lot with my vision loss and everything, and raising five children, and the economic impact that had on us and everything. I'm not going to say it took a toll, but it was challenging at times. But we weathered the storm, and we worked our way through it and everything. And it was a tough go, but we got through it.
Sure, sure. Definitely understandable. And your wife is fully sighted?
Yeah, my wife is fully sighted, and knock on wood, my five children are all seem to be fully sighted, and we don't see any indication of retinitis pigmentosa in them. And we've been fortunate now. Back in the day when we were married and thinking about having children, there weren't DNA tests back then. It was you would get some consultation and you'd get some probabilities or whatever, but nothing like today. So they've all most of them have all been tested. I think three out of the five have had their blood work done, and they've been tested to see if they're carrying genes or potential carriers of the RP that I have. And we're lucky so far; it has not manifested itself. So, and we have our first grandchild. He's like 14 months old, and he seems to be doing very well as well. So,
Nice, nice. Great to hear. So just going back to Villanova, so what did you study in college?
yeah. So, well, I went to school. I studied. I received a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, and I concentrated mostly on marketing and finance. I did graduate, I graduated high school in 78. I did graduate Villanova. I am the class of 81, which drives a lot of my friends who hadn't found me in years. They'll look for me at Villanova in class of 82 and say, I know Ed went here. Did he not graduate? But actually, I got out earlier. And I did that for one, primarily because my parents really didn't have the money to provide for me, and I was taking loans out. And at the time when I was going to Villanova at that time, if you took your normal 15 credits, anything you took over that, they didn't charge you for. So I realized that early on,
Hmm.
and I would take an extra course or two a semester, and I was able to get out and be part of class of 81. So second reason was too is I really didn't like all the reading and studying and things like that. It was really tough on my vision at that time, and I did not know about adaptive technology. I didn't have any magnification programs or anything like that, except for maybe the occasional magnifying glass. And I thought about going on to graduate school or law school, but I just shied away from that and decided to just go to work.
Right. Oh, yeah. Just, like you said, late 70s, early 80s, assistive tech was a whole different ballgame
It
back
was a
then.
different ball game, and if they did have it, you couldn't afford it.
Absolutely. Yep. So as far as your career, so I know you've worked in assistive tech, accessibility.
That was later in life. That really the assistive tech side came after I had lost my vision and I had stopped working and everything. So right out of college, I had moved to Atlanta and with an old high school buddy of mine, and we ended up starting our first company down there, International Box Corporation. And so we were selling corrugated containers and shipping materials and things like that. So
Hmm.
we built that up pretty well, and then my fiance did not want to move to Georgia, so I ended up selling my interests out to my partner, moving to New York, and then starting the same type of business up in the New York metro area. So I did that for many years, and then I ended up did a little stint on Wall Street. And while I was doing that, I found this small company that dealt in that was dealing with baseball, and they had developed a tracking system. Most people watch television today, and they see that little box in the lower right-hand corner of a TV screen, which tracks the location of the baseball in the strike zone. That technology was originated by this company, and I ended up investing in the company, going to work with the company, and I ended up taking them over in 1992, and then revamped it, rebuilt the technology, and renamed it Questech. And that was my start of my 19-year career with Major League Baseball, professional baseball, working with PGA golf for professional golf, working with ATP for tennis, and doing events basically around the world. I've done golf tournaments in China, South Africa, Canada, United States.
Wow.
Worked with 23 Major League ball clubs, and then Major League Baseball hired us in 2000 to build an umpire tracking and scoring system that we put together for them because they were trying to basically build a standard strike zone. So it was a great career. I got to travel the world, got to do a lot of things, and I even worked on skiing in Europe. So I worked with Christian Neureuter, who was married to Rosie Mittermeier, who people who were my age will remember. She won 5 gold medals in the '76 Winter Olympics. So got to be good friends with them, and work with ZDF National Television as well.
Wow, that's amazing. I had no idea you had that background in sports and getting to travel, and pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, that's one of the things. So when I really started losing my vision, I stopped working at the end of the 2008 baseball season. Basically, went from working at 100 miles an hour, 24/7, to sitting at home and not knowing how to be blind because it was my company. I ran the company, so as I was moving along, getting older, as my vision got worse, if I couldn't do something, I would just assign that task over to somebody else, and I still supervised it, still managed it, still was heavily involved in everything. But my support network were my employees, and then when I stopped working, all of a sudden I'm sitting home, and my wife had gone back to work a couple of years earlier after raising the 5 kids. Kids were all in college. All my friends were still working, and there was nobody to play with, and I was just sitting home getting depressed.
Sure. Quite a transition.
Yeah, big transition. So at that point, that's when I really started getting myself back in shape. I started just walking. So I would go for a 4-mile walk in the morning. Next thing I knew, I was doing that twice a day, morning and afternoon, and slowly built that up to just getting online. Got onto social media basically to monitor what my kids were starting to do because they were late teenagers at that point. I wanted to make sure everything was okay with quote unquote big bad social media.
Yep.
And when I got signed up online, I think within 24 hours I had heard from five friends from college and high school and even grammar school that I hadn't seen or heard from in 30 plus years. So I ended up just getting involved in that, looking things up in the blind community. Came across this guy from North Carolina, Ed McDaniels, and I saw he had just run a marathon with his cane. It's like, wow. I said, I think I could do that. And I started training, and I did my first half marathon in 2011. And from there, I just started getting more involved in the blind community through social media. I found a support group here on Long Island called Eye to Eye. From there, I found somebody who you've actually had on your show, Sensei Devin Fernandez's group, Third Eye Insight, and I got involved in his martial arts program.
Sure.
And I found that getting myself back in shape, getting involved in adaptive sports was really, really making me feel good about myself again.
Wow.
And I just kept growing from there. I took up skiing again. I was an avid skier. I mean, I skied in Europe when I used to go over there and do work and everything, and had my family over there in 2000 when I took a really bad fall in Garmisch-Partenkirchen skiing over there. And ended up in the hospital with a concussion, and
Yikes.
all the pictures from that vacation have my head all bandaged up. I've got these two black eyes, a bandage across my nose because it was a really bad accident. So I hadn't skied in 13 years, and then Devin had introduced me to the U.S. Association of Blind Athletes, and they had a program with Vermont Adaptive, and I just kept looking at it, and finally I said, you know what? I miss skiing. I'm going to give this a try. And I signed up for it, went up there with Devin and a group of us, and Pasquale Agnon, who's also someone you know as well, was there. He was my roommate on that trip and everything. And it was just, it was really good. And I felt great about it. And I remember my ski instructor telling me I was the fastest blind skier he'd ever skied with, and he'd been skiing up there for 10 years doing that. So at that point, I felt I was back.
Sure. So there had been quite a few years between that injury and then getting back on the slopes, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah, almost 13 years.
Wow.
And it was through that. It was through some of the guys who were doing the martial arts with me, and that's how I found beat baseball. And I did that for 3 years, I think 2012, 2013, and 2014. I believe those are the years. I might be off by a year because I know I went to Columbus, Georgia for the World Series. I think that was 2013.
Yeah, I believe so.
Right. Then after that, I went to Rochester, Minnesota. So, in 2015, things were just getting busy. I had gotten a part-time job working for a small rehab company in New York City. In 2012, I had bought my first iPhone, and I was tracking things, and I taught myself how to use VoiceOver, and it made a huge difference for me. And then I was involved with the Foundation Fighting Blindness, and they had asked me if I knew anyone who could give a presentation. And I had met this woman from, she was staying at Helen Keller National Center. She was originally from Georgia. And I met her at a retinitis pigmentosa RP social in 2011 that I had gone to that year. And she was determined that she was going to go to work for Apple. And she was teaching herself the voiceover on the Mac and getting help from Helen Keller. And she got her iPhone and iPads and everything going. And at that point, I had heard about the iPhone 3GS when it first came out. And I kept saying, that's a piece of glass. What am I going to do with that? So after that, I bought my first iPhone in 2012. A month later, I had asked her to do this presentation for Foundation Fighting Blindness here in New York, and she said she would do it if I would do it with her. And I said, Kim, I've had my iPhone for less than a month. She said, yeah, but you know it really well, so I'll do the iPad side, you do the iPhone side. And we got up there and we did this presentation. It was a packed room. There had to be about 250 people out there. And at the end of the presentation, this gentleman walks up to me and he gives me his card and he asked me if I could come see him. He says, I think that technology would help me. And he was a gentleman that had Stargarts, and he owned his own rehab company, vocational rehab company in New York City. So I stopped in to see him, worked with him, took him over to the Apple store. We met Kim. We sold him his first iPhone. I went back to his office with him. We set it up. He called me back 3 days later, saying that this was the greatest thing since sliced bread, and we needed to do something with this.
Right.
So we got together and we formed a nonprofit, and we started building audio modules to teach blind people how to use the iPhone. And that's how I got involved with Krista Giannick, who you've also had on your show. She actually was writing the scripts, and we hired her brother, and he was actually doing the voiceover work for us at that time. And from there, we kept keeping track of it. In California, all of a sudden, they added iOS training to their vocational rehab programs. And at that point, we had been contacted by New York State because they were looking to do the same thing. They knew about our program. And we worked with them and wrote the original curriculum. And 9 months later, they approved it. So, and then they approved me and our agency as the first trainers for iOS in New York State. And we pretty much had an exclusive relationship with that for about 9 months. And then the curriculum was sent out to the other agencies and everything. But that was my start of adaptive tech.
Right. It really is incredible how the smartphone, specifically the iPhone, has been such a game changer. And
You know what's also incredible, Greg, is putting yourself out there all these things happen because of networking and relationships. And
True.
I mean, when you start losing your vision, especially if you've had sight, it can be emotionally devastating. And depression is a key. I see too many people self-medicating with alcohol and unfortunately sometimes drugs and things. But you have to put yourself out there, and when you do, you start meeting people, and it's that network that will help you build these relationships, and then build, and those things can grow into things that have an impact on your life and the people around you. So making it happen is getting out there and doing it.
Absolutely. And that's the hardest step for so many people to take. Alrighty. So then just kind of focusing on adaptive sports. So I know you did mention beat baseball and you did play with the Long Island Bombers, right?
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, I was with the Long Island Bombers. And I believe you said you played with them in a World Series at one point?
Yeah, back in 2021, I had the opportunity and it was a really awesome experience. They were kind of basically the best team I'd gotten to play with in my beat ball career. There was a game we actually had a walk-off win 3-2.
Awesome.
So it was super exciting to be part of that, and just in general to be, around so many more experienced players and being able to kind of pick their brains and learn from some of the best.
Yeah, I remember I first heard about beat baseball, and I shied away from it because I was told you had to wear a blindfold, and it was like, wait a minute, I'm losing my vision. I'm not putting a blindfold on to play the game.
Right.
So it was that was like 2011. I had heard about it, and then I think maybe it was a year and a half, the end of 2012. I think just before their season was ending, I went to one of their practices, and I put the blindfold on, and I got up to hit. And having played ball a lot growing up, I had a really good swing, and I remember catching that ball, and it flew over the left fielder's head, and all of a sudden people were walking up. You want to ride to practice next week? So yeah, so that was the start of it. But I can tell you, the first time making contact, running down that line, and hitting that base and being safe, and I was at that point, I was glad I had a blindfold on because it was covering up the tears that were flowing out of my eyes.
Wow, powerful. Yeah, I can totally relate. Just like you said, getting out there for the first time, and not only at the dish, but also in the field, and just kind of the independence that you really do feel when you get out there, and you're in control of that bat, and you're in control of trying to get that ball, and it's such a great feeling.
That was the first competitive adaptive team sport situation I'd been back into in many, many years. And it's one thing to ski, and it's one thing to do the martial arts and stuff like that. But when you're on a team, it's a whole different entity. I mean, all that aspect comes back of teammates, and you're out there because you're not just worrying about letting yourself down. You don't want to let your teammates down. You want to win. You want to perform well and things like that. It has a major, major impact on you.
Absolutely. Well said. So then transitioning on to blind baseball. So like I mentioned at the top, beat baseball has been around, since the 70s. Basically, the World Series first started back in the 70s. But blind baseball, a very different type of adaptive baseball, is pretty recent in this country. And I know that you were kind of at the forefront of kind of launching this sport in the U.S., right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, they had made several attempts at it. So the actual game was, believe it or not, developed in Italy in 1998. And a lot of people don't realize, but Italy has a strong history of loving the game of baseball itself. A lot of that comes from World War II. One of the American soldiers moved into Italy, and basically Italy switched sides from the evil Axis and joined the Allies and everything. And a lot of those young boys over there that were 6, 7, 8, 10 years old have been many had lost their fathers in the war and everything. So they were idolizing the young American soldiers over there who brought baseball. And they started teaching the young Italian kids how to play the game, and it really grew from there. It didn't hurt that Joe DiMaggio was a great baseball player with the New York Yankees, so that was a natural transition as well in terms of following the game and wanting to idolizing him as well. So it had a long history. So blind soccer was around a little bit back then, and there was a professor, I can't remember the name of the school, but this all took place in Bologna, Italy. And he wanted to develop a game for blind for baseball. So it took him a while, a lot of trial and error working with the blind community. And they really designed a very good game that takes into account, the fundamental aspects of, running, throwing, fielding, and hitting, and put it together and came up with a really, really safe format in terms of how the game is played, and in terms of safety, and the games get very competitive. And Italy usually averages 10 to 12 teams on any given year. They'll have at least 10 teams, and they've had as many as 12 and 14 at one time. And it has grown through Europe now as well. Things changed a few years ago when the World Baseball Softball Confederation actually sanctioned the game and took over the international tournaments for it. So under the belief and the goal of getting this in, letting this become a Paralympic sport.
Sure.
So what happened was, I guess in 2013, I had heard that the Italians had sent a couple of coaches over, and they were going to be, I think it was Columbus, Georgia. They were going to be in Columbus, Georgia, to try and get people to look at their game. And I don't think it went too well. I mean, it was I don't know if it was because Beat Baseball viewed it as a potential threat or whatever it was, but I've seen in the adaptive sports arena, everybody thinks their adaptive sports is better than any other one, whether it's goal ball
Yep.
or beat ball or anything else like that. So they were back again in 2015, and they had two people who had rented a place in New York City. They were going to be there 6 months, and I guess they arrived in late March. And they didn't have a lot of success. And it was like the end of June, I got a phone call. They were going around and meeting with the local chapters of like NFB and American Council of Blind, ACB, and spoke to FFB and stuff. But they weren't getting people really to come out and do anything. They didn't have the relationships in the city to do anything with the Parks Department and things. And they had gone to the New York State Commission for the Blind and spoke to them to see if they could get some assistance. And I got a phone call from one of the senior counselors there in the Harlem office, and because she knew I was heavily involved in adaptive sports. I moved on and developed some other adaptive sports in the city, and she asked me if I could meet with them and maybe help them. So they came to meet me, and I really liked them. They were a nice couple, and it was a male and female, and they were both players of the sport. And I said, okay. I said, I've got some relationships. And we organized our first clinic in Central Park in July of 2015. And we had about 35 people come out. And from there, it just started moving forward. We continued on that year with another clinic in October. And then in the spring, we started doing weekly practices. And we formed our first team in late June of that year, when we called it the New York Bashers. We didn't want to do the Bombers, because the Bombers were already taken by the beat ball team that a lot of the same players were playing with and things. So
sure, interesting.
And then unfortunately, not too long after that, I had gotten hired by the Lighthouse Guild in New York City as their adaptive technology specialist, which was the same place that I had gotten my training from 3 years earlier. So having finished my adaptive training with them, which was the first time I learned what magnification and screen reading software was, and OCR scanning and reading software was, and stuff. And then I had gone on and worked for that small agency, Apex, and the iPhone thing, so that when they had an opening, that same counselor who called me and asked me to work with the Italians to help get their sports started, told me I needed to interview and work at the Lighthouse. And so that's what I did there. And unfortunately, that's a full-time job, and I live out on Long Island, which is 2-hour commute to the city and 2-hour commute home, and there wasn't a lot of time for extracurricular activities, so I had to step back from the blind baseball for a while. And they continued to go on, and they formed the team that we started became the New York Rockers, and that team ended up splitting in 2019. So now you had the two teams, the Rockers and the New York Lions team. And then COVID hit, and everything just pretty much stopped and almost fell apart.
Sure.
And it was in early of 2022, January, February. I was getting calls from people at both teams, and they were asking me to come back and see if I could help get things kick-started again. And so I decided to work with the Rockers at that point because they were the most devastated. And I figured, well, if I work with them, the other team seems closer to being put back on their feet. We'll have two teams. So I decided to work with the Rockers, and we built the team. And then that spring, they started talking about the first World Baseball Softball Confederation's inaugural Blind Baseball International Cup. And they sent two coaches over from AIBXC, which is the international governing body from Italy, came over, and they were going to evaluate our talent and make a determination if we were competitive enough to go over and play. They came over. We were competitive enough, but we knew we had to put an all-star team together. So we had the two teams showed up, and we did 3 days of tryouts. And I was mostly doing some playing, but mostly coaching at that time. And I ended up going through the workouts and tryouts with the team. And I ended up making the team for that first team, which, I was a little surprised, but I was pleasantly surprised. Unfortunately, I also had a vacation that my wife and I had planned 18 months earlier, where we were going to England and Scotland for like 2.5 weeks. And I thought that these dates basically conflicted with that, but it turned out that I was off by like 4 days, and the start of this was the last day of our vacation. So I spoke with her, and we had friends that lived in the Netherlands that we hadn't seen in like 7 years, and I called them up first before I spoke to my wife, because I wanted to make sure they were available, because I knew it would be an easier sell for her to leave Scotland a day early. So we did that. And at that point, I said, okay, guys, I can make it. So next thing I knew, I found myself on that first inaugural team.
Wow.
Which was great, because we actually went on and we medaled. We actually won the bronze medal in that tournament for the first time. It was the first time that we had actually won a game in Europe, because in 2019 the Rockers had gone over to play in a tournament, and they didn't win one game over there at that time, because those teams play constantly, and they were very competitive. So we were able to go over and compete against Germany and England and the Netherlands and the Italians and the French, and it worked out well.
Wow. And what did it mean to you to be part of, such a special team, and like you said, getting that first win in Europe?
Oh, it was great. I mean, one of the things we did was we did contact the United States Baseball Federation, and they actually gave us Team USA designation, which allowed us to wear US Team USA uniforms over there. And to just stand on a field at an international tournament like that and hear them play your national anthem. And again, I was glad I had a blindfold on, because that was not just covering up tears welling up my eyes. That was covering up the tears that would have been rolling down my cheeks.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty powerful.
Absolutely. So as far as blind baseball, the rules, I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, how does this sport actually work? And I know, like I said, it's definitely different than beatball.
Right.
So if you want to just kind of give an overview of the rules.
Sure. So the number one difference that you would notice is that in blind baseball, there's no pitcher. Okay.
Right.
So we hit the ball out of our own hands. And it's a little trickier. It's not like when you're sighted. If you played ball and you're sighted, you toss the ball up and hitting fungos and things like that. It's kind of it's a unique mechanism to do it, based on your skill set that you may have had previously. You will determine if you're going to do it the way that most of the Italians do, which is kind of like a cricket type swing. Where they're dropping the ball, and the ball is more on a downward angle to give you a better chance of making contact with the ball. Or if you've played ball in America and then lost your vision, you know that we learned to swing with a level swing, arms extended for power, and you try to adapt that way, which is a way of holding the bat, and you're hitting it with one hand, because you're basically holding the ball in the other hand, and you have to let go of that ball just that millisecond before that bat comes flying through, so you don't smash your hand or knuckles.
Yep.
That's how we make contact with it. So the other thing is we play on half the field. So our fair territory is the areas between second and third base. So there's nothing hit to right field.
Oh, I see.
So we're playing five 5 blind defensive players in that field area. So you'll, depending on the talent of your team and the opposing team that you're playing, how they play, or how their individual hitters play, you may put a second baseman to the right of second base, play short, and then play third, and then have an outfielder at the apex of third and short, or short or second for the center field or right field or whatever, and then rotate the second baseman back and have two defensive players up front. And when you hit the ball, you don't run to first base. You have to make it to second base to be safe. So the first base does have a sounding beep sound to it, electronic, similar to what you have in beep ball. But on second base, you actually have a coach from your team who has these pair of clappers, and they're wood clappers, and they have cloth on one side. So the second baseman hits with one wood side, one cloth side. And as soon as you start rounding first base, he'll start clapping to guide you into second base. And you have to make it to second base before that ball is fielded. But then also, when you field the ball in our game, there is a one-sided defensive player who's at another second base, which is 8 to 10 feet behind the one we're running to. And he's on that base, and he starts yelling 2, 2, 2, 2. And you have to basically, because you have a blindfold on too, and everybody's at level playing field. You have to orient yourself to that sound and make a clean throw to him or her before that runner makes it to second base. And some of these more advanced players, I mean, they're getting there in 11 seconds. So that's not a lot of time. And our ball's not electronic. Our ball has 2 chimes in it. So it makes sound when it's rolling, but sometimes that ball may stop before you get to it. And you basically, when you're tracking it, you have to pick up the trajectory. And if it stops, you have to figure out where it is and get to it. So, and that 11 seconds goes by pretty quickly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it's a great game. Fair balls are not fair unless they're hit past the running path of the runners. So, anything that falls short of that or stops in the infield is a foul ball, which is a strike. Third base itself is actually in foul territory. So the fair is at the edge of the third base toward the infield. That reason being that we don't want members who are standing on third base getting hit with the ball. So the umpire who does cover that third base area, he does wear a mitt, and he steps in and tries to stop, block, or catch anything that might hit a runner that's standing on third base. And once you're on second, then your teammate, as part of the adaptive team sport, is responsible for driving you over to third, and if you're safe at third, and you can make it to third before, and the runner second be out, and you can be on third base, and the next hitter has to drive you home. So, and same thing, we have a clapper at third base, and that clapper is using both cloth sides of it, so it makes a slightly different sound. So you pick up the distinction between second and third base as you're running and isolating. And you overrun the bases, you're out. I mean, you really have to try and pinpoint things, which is why a lot of the Italians and the Americans a lot of times will slide into second or third base, because it just improves your odds of making sure you hit that base in time.
Sure. And as far as the bases, obviously in beat baseball, they're a couple feet tall, versus in blind baseball, they're pretty flat, right? They're
flat. They're the same size as first, second, and third base in a professional baseball game, but they're not like 2 inches thick. They're basically they're tapered. They might be an inch thick in the middle, but toward the edges, they're almost totally flat.
Oh, I see. Gotcha.
Yeah, they do have a little cushion to them in the middle. That way you can tell when you're standing on it.
Right. I see.
Yeah.
And then I think you told me home plate there's no sound associated with home plate.
There's no sound at home plate. Home plate, you are on your own. You do have a grace of 3 foot on each side of the base. So you have to basically run down that corridor.
Oh, I see.
And so there's nobody there to clap you home or anything. So the third base coach is allowed to point you in the right direction to line you up. But at that point, you're on your own. So, when the batter steps in and is ready to hit, you basically you have to know that. So when you're running and you have to maintain some speed, you basically have to pay attention to if you're on dirt or if you feel grass on your left foot first, you got to move to the right a little bit. If it's on the right, you got to move to the left a little bit and try and keep yourself as centered as possible and run as straight as you can.
Right. So definitely a very tactile. You have to be very, focused on tactile.
And that's what it all is. It's all tactile. It's all sound, which
Right.
is kind of unique. And the amazing thing is that I found is that as my vision loss progressed and I got to the less I could see in my daily life, the better blind baseball player I became.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then as far as home runs, talk to me about home runs.
Home runs are similar to what you have in beat ball, where beat baseball. That if it travels was 180 feet.
Yeah, or 170 maybe.
170. Yeah, so some I don't have the exact measurement. So, but yeah, if it goes past that distance, it's an automatic home run.
Gotcha. Very
Yeah,
cool.
and the only difference is too with our ball with our game. I told you that the fair line is just beyond the running base pad between second and third. That ball has to hit the ground before that line. If it goes over that line, it's an automatic out.
Mm-mm. Wow.
Because basically our ball doesn't beep. Even in
Sure.
beep baseball, I remember the first game I went to for the World Series in Columbus, where we were playing one of the top teams, the first round or whatever. And I remember being in right field and I heard that ball hit and I heard it beeping and I heard it over my head and I heard it land behind me. And I was like, oh my God, it could have hit me in the head.
Yep.
So we don't have that. I mean, the ball has to hit the ground. So you hear it and you know where it is and things like that. And also you don't have people taking line drives because, I think I had a conversation with you earlier with mutual bomber, Matt Pavogo. I think we were playing the Boston Renegades in Eisenhower Park in New York at one of our tournaments here, and he took a line drive right to the face, and his nose just exploded from that. That ball's heavy in beat ball. It's you get hit with that, it.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that was the thing. And I've seen a lot of people have an injury like you, or dislocated elbow or dislocated shoulder, because when you hit that first or third base, which is can be it was about 2.5, 3 feet off the ground, you go flying.
Right. Your whole body's vulnerable to anything.
Yeah, and I remember in Columbus, I met a player from Chicago who actually broke his legs because he started out toward first and made too sharp a stop turn to go to third.
Oh,
And he
jeez.
broke his leg. It's I am happy to say that in the game we play, I haven't seen any injuries like that, and I've been playing this game on and off for eight years now. So.
Hmm. Yeah. So as far as safety, just talk to me a little more about, the safety of the game, and it's designed to be pretty safe, right?
I think, and that's the thing I really like about it is that the fact that it takes in all fundamental aspects of the game. Like I said, hitting, running, throwing, fielding, and it's designed with safety in mind. And working in vocational rehabilitation at the Lighthouse Guild, I mean, that's something that I'm very in tune to now, having been in this field for 10 years, and safety is always important. And I really think that the timing of the game is good. Just like in professional baseball, I remember Ken Burns' baseball series came out. I was given that collection as a gift, and him speaking about how just the design of the game, that 90-foot bases are just, if it was 100 feet, it would change the whole dynamic of the game. It was 85 or 80 feet, it would change the whole time. It just seems to be just the right number for the right sport. And I think they did something similar in blind baseball.
Right. Absolutely. As far as the scoring, I know in beat ball, some of these games, get up into the 20s, 30s as far as runs. Do you see the same thing in blind baseball, or
Not
is it less?
not so much. I mean, if you put two well trained competitive teams together, I mean, I know most of the championships games get down to be like 2-1, 3-2, 1-0.
Mm.
I mean, you can see something like that happen. I mean, they do have a mercy rule where you're not allowed to score more than 5 runs in an inning, and then you'll just transition over.
I see.
Yeah.
Interesting.
One of the other things we do too in our game is that so when you take defense to the field at the start of the game, you play 6 outs. You're basically playing defense, twice, and then you will hit for 2 innings for 6 outs, just to save time for the trend, because you know how much time it can take going
Oh, yeah.
in on and off the field. The other major difference too is when the ball is hit. Um, like I said, it doesn't beep, and what makes it more difficult too, there's no coaches yelling out where it's going. I mean, you
Right.
basically
As far as spotters.
you have to track that ball off the bat and figure out where it is and where you think it's going and get to it to try and stop it. And similarly, you basically a lot of times you're going to dive and put your body on the ground if you know it's on the ground to stop that ball from going by you. So, and at that point, it bounces off you. It gives you a good indication on where it is, and you can either roll on it to find it, or just go into that crab mode and move your arms properly so you don't knock it out of the way. You can't get to it, and then get back, and then get up on your feet quickly and make a clean throw.
Right. The throwing is
So,
definitely a
yeah,
big differentiator.
it's a big differentiator, because and you have to have a good arm to throw, just like in any time to throw from third to second base. And that defensive player on second base, he is allowed to field the ball if it's hit up the up towards second base, but he cannot leave that base. So he has to have a foot on that base at all times. If it's beyond his reach, he doesn't get it. So there are times where people have hit great shots up the middle and had the sighted defensive player snatch that ball on him and get a double play like that. So
Oh, wow.
yeah. So and but if you make a bad throw, he has he can run off that base at that point to go get the ball and try and make it back to second base before the runners get to their bases. So
Sure. Sure.
which brings into sometimes stealing. So if you're running into second and the ball's overthrown, you're the coach who's clapping. He's not allowed to talk to you, but he can say go. He can let you know that ball's beyond, and at that point you have to quickly orient and start heading toward third to try and
Right.
get over to third base.
Gotcha. As far as innings, how many innings is a game?
So the Italians they play 9 inning games.
Hmm.
There, I believe, and the UK may be doing the same. They have 4 teams going in the UK right now, and they're working on their 5th, which is going to be a Welsh team. Um, Tournaments can go 90 minutes, or at least a minimum of 3 innings. So whichever. If you get, you can go 4 or 5 innings, you can get it in 90 minutes, but you have to play at least a minimum of 3 innings in a tournament game.
Oh, I see. Gotcha. So as far as blind baseball in the U.S. currently, so let's talk about the USBBA, the U.S. Blind Baseball Association. So if I understand correctly, that was established pretty recently, right?
Right. So following the bronze medal win at the World Baseball Softball Confederation tournament last August, we came back, and we knew that we had the talent here, a good foundation, and it was time to really make things formal. So one of the advantages we have is the coach that I've been working with since 2015, Don Landolfi, is a Hall of Fame college baseball coach. He's coached for Brooklyn College. He coached with St. John's University. He also was the assistant coach in the 1970s of the Italian national team when they actually beat America for the first time.
Mm.
So he's got a great 60-year history of coaching baseball, and he's been involved with this sport since I got involved with it in 2015, and he was actually helping over in Italy back in 2011 and 2013. So he lives here on Long Island, and we've got a great working relationship. So following our trip over to Beek, Netherlands for that tournament, we came back and we spoke to our players and everything, and we basically put together and formed the United States Blind Baseball Association for the sole purpose of promoting, managing, and developing blind baseball teams, players, coaches, and officials here in the United States, for the sole purpose of helping AIBXC, our league governing body, and the World Baseball Softball Confederation to build this into a Paralympic sport. And that's where we're going from here. So right now we have there's two teams. Where looks like our newest team, the LG Lightning, is going to split into another team in the spring. So that'll put us up to three teams here in New York. This year, we had a skills and development clinic that we organized. We sent 24 people over to Bologna, Italy in May. Well, I'm not going to say we didn't pay for everybody to go. A lot of people paid their own way. We did subsidize some of it because we were only 2 months old at that time. But people were dedicated, and between their grants from Challenge Athlete Foundation and Foreseeable Future Foundation, a lot of them were able to go over as well. But most of the volunteers and coaches paid their own way to go, and we sent them over. And we worked with AIBXC league governing body in Bologna, and we ran a skills and development clinic there for a week. And we had access to the fields in the morning and the afternoons, and we worked with their coaches who trained our coaches and also trained our players. And we also played with the Bologna White Sox, which is the number one team in Italy. And they would come out, and the players would interact with us and give us tricks and tips and things like that, and work with us and show us how they do things. And then we would play some scrimmages with them, and then we'd play scrimmages against each other because we had 14 ball players at that point over there. So we did that. And so this year we're doing the same thing here in the United States. So in July, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to run a blind baseball skills and development clinic in Orlando, Florida. And the Italians are looking to send over between 8 and 12 ball players and 4 coaches to participate with that program. To be promoting that in the just probably before spring hits in late February, early March. We'll start promoting it, and then look to get people to come out and try our game, and we'll do it in Orlando.
Wow. Hey, I'd love to personally come out and check that out if I can.
You're just a quick bullet train away.
Exactly.
I haven't rode that new bullet train from Orlando down to South Florida yet, but I hear it's pretty good.
Yeah, same here. That's a game changer, and I'm hoping to see more expansion, to Tampa, the West Coast, Jacksonville. The state definitely needs a lot more public transit and connectedness.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great. The thing we have here in the States is that, we have a foundation here in New York City, but we do want to reach out and expand. And I did a trip in, I don't know if you're familiar with Flight for Sight.
No.
Yeah, so Flight for Sight's an organization, flightforsight.net. The founder and CEO is actually one of my teammates, and he developed this foundation. And what he does is his organization gives away 3 $10,000 grants a year, and to anybody, and you send your proposal in for what you would do to help promote travel and awareness for blindness. And it could be anything from just traveling around the country and testing accessibility in different environments, or we had two girls that played goalball that went to Birmingham for the IBSA tournaments over there, and then went over to Italy and Greece and played goalball over there as well. And there's a blind musician from Belgium won the other grant. So, but the one grant was won by my co-host of That Real Blind Tech Show, Brian Fischler. His proposal was to travel around the country and go to different Major League Baseball parks to check accessibility going in as a blind person.
Wow.
And he had asked me to be his travel buddy, which is part of his grant. So we went to Dallas, Texas. We went to Houston, where we actually went to the NFB conference.
Oh yeah.
We went then from there we went to Arizona. From Arizona we went to LA. From LA we went to San Diego, and then we flew up and we finished up because we went to the All-Star game in Seattle. So in each of those cities we went to a Major League Baseball game. We saw we saw the Texas Rangers, we saw the Astros, we the Diamondbacks, the Dodgers, the Padres, and then finished up at the All-Star game. So, and each time we went to the park, and Brian's a guide dog user, and I'm a cane user, and each of us only have light perception, and we would just go and see what it was like to try and get to the park and see how accessible it was and how customer service treated us, and how they moved us around and helped us out and things like that. And he wrote a blog about it on flightforsight.net. And he did a couple of podcasts and some interviews with it as well for some of the people we met and things like that. And it was a great experience. But in doing that, I was able to meet and talk to different organizations in each of those cities about blind baseball. So we've got some nice interest there. So we're going to be looking to expand on that now in 2024.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. First off, I'm a little jealous of that baseball park trip.
Oh yeah, it was pretty incredible. I mean, we did learn our lesson. The first stop was it was in Dallas. We went to the Texas Rangers game, and we made the mistake of walking in thinking we'd get food and then seek assistance. You
Yep.
can't do it that way. You have to get your assistance right at the gate, and then every park was great. And one of the things we did come across is that not all ballparks have real-time radio feeds.
Interesting.
So, which when you don't see the game, the last thing you need is a 15 to as much as a 25 to 30-second delay, because sometimes the next pitch coming in, you don't even know what happened in the previous play.
Right. Obviously, with streaming the game on your phone.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
So Brian had bought a transistor radio to bring, and we found that didn't work most of the time because we were getting the over-the-air feeds. But most of the ballparks, I believe, you go there and they'll provide you with an in-house radio that only gets their feed from inside the ballpark, and that is usually that's real time. So
Wow.
yeah, so that was it was good to know that, and going forward. But there are still some clubs in the U.S. that don't have that. So I know that one of the resolutions that the National Federation of Blind put out in July after the convention was to have professional sports make sure that they have real-time accessible radio feeds for blind spectators.
Sure. That's an excellent initiative, and obviously still a challenge in 2023, which it shouldn't be. But
it shouldn't be, but you're not going to use your iPhone to get a radio feed because, again, that could be a minute delayed.
That's right.
But it just felt great because that was the first, having worked in professional baseball for so many years, and a lot of the times it was, I would go to the different parks, and I'd meet with my crews that were, handling the software and the cameras and things there. And then, I would usually go sit in the stand. So, and I always loved being in the ballpark, the experience and knowing what was going on. But I could see a little better back then. The ball was hit. I could, if I couldn't track it, I could see the movement of the players on the field to know what was going on. And
right.
Going with just light perception at this point, having that access to a real time radio feed, which is usually much more descriptive than you'll ever get on television. I found it to be very advantageous.
Definitely. Alrighty, so to wrap up here, if people are interested in blind baseball, if they want to find out more, what kind of resources do you want to mention as far as online that people can find?
Sure. So right now, our URL is www.usbba.us. We are going to be putting our website together over the next month here. We really haven't gotten to the website portion of things yet, but that link takes you to our Facebook page right now, which has a lot of the information that we do. A lot of the, if people do have sight or have somebody who wants to take a look, there's lots of videos and lots of photos there. So we'll be putting more social media stuff together once we get the landing page set up for the website and start building the ancillary pages there. And we'll build one for the LG Lightning as well, which is the newest team we formed in New York City. I was actually able to get the Lighthouse Guild in New York City to sponsor the newest team, which is great because they pay us a fee every year for the right of sponsorship. And we, in turn, have enough money to cover general liability and accident insurance and uniforms and some travel and things like that. So it's a win-win situation. And it's kind of like a model I would like to try and use in different parts of the country as well. Because, you know how this stuff works. Being involved with, I think you were what was Palm Beach Bandits? Is that the beat baseball team you're associated with?
Yeah, Braille Bandits of Palm Beach.
Braille Bandits,
Yep.
okay, Braille Bandits of Palm. Yeah, you know what it's involved to have the funding to do the things you need to do. I mean, especially if you're
No
going to
doubt.
travel and do tournaments and things like that, you're constantly fundraising, you're constantly looking for sponsorship, and to have that base there on a team by team basis would really help us grow, quicker. So that's one of the things that we're looking to do, and we've done some great fundraising. I mentioned that Real Blind Tech Show, which is the podcast that I do with Brian Fischler. Brian also runs an organization called Laugh for Sight, and we do a major fundraising event in New York City every October. And this year, he was gracious enough to allow United States Blind Baseball Association to benefit from the two Laugh for Sights we did, one on Long Island in August, and then the one we did in New York City in October. So that's a great event at Gotham Comedy Club. We get some major talent there. We've had in the past Jerry Seinfeld, Jim Gaffigan, Robert Klein is a staple. Guilford Godfrey was a staple until he unfortunately passed away 2 years ago. So, it's a great event for the blind community, and he, like I said, we were lucky to benefit from it this year. So it's given us a nice foundation going into 2024.
Sure. Awesome.
And other than that, if people really want more information, they can contact me at Ed Plumacher, EdPlumacher at USBBA.us, and I'll be happy to pass on any information I can.
Excellent. I appreciate that. And I'll definitely include the website link as well as your email in the show notes.
Great. Appreciate it. So hopefully we can get you out there when we're in Florida, maybe in July. You'll come up and visit us for a day or two, and we'll get you on the field, and we'll check out that throwing and fielding side of baseball.
Would love to. Would be an absolute blast. I'm going to mark that down already to knock off, block out some time in July. So
good. Awesome. All right.
Cool. Alrighty. Again, Ed Plumacher, really appreciate the time. You're such a cool guy, involved in so many cool things, and really appreciate you taking the time to chat here on Eyes Free Sports.
No, I appreciate it, Greg. Like I told you when we first spoke, I'm a fan of your show. I've been listening to it for quite a while, and I love the talent that you bring in, and the unique perspective you bring from athletes and even entrepreneurs and things like that. So it's great for our blind community, and I'm glad that you let me be a participant and be part of it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Ed. Alrighty. To hear more episodes of the Eyes Free Sports podcast and to subscribe, search for Eyes Free Sports on your favorite podcast platform or visit eyesfreesports.com. Be sure to follow the Eyes Free Sports podcast at facebook.com/eyesfreesports and on Twitter at Eyes Free Sports.